Here. So thank you for those excellent presentations. And I want to echo one thing that Shana said, because I'm not sure I said it before in the beginning, is that we are really pleased and grateful for everyone who has come here today, who is taking time out of their schedules to come talk to us about this important issue. And so that's the next piece of our agenda. And I have in my hands the sign-up sheet, which has, from my estimation, about 40 people signed up to speak. And I say estimate partly because there are some folks who didn't indicate either way. And in those instances, I will call your name when we get to you on the list to see if you'd like an opportunity to speak. I'm just going to go over the guidelines. And normally what we do, if there are elected officials here who would like to speak, we would yield the floor to you first, knowing that you may have public business to attend to. So I will ask about that in a moment. I mentioned before that we're asking people to limit their comments to 5 minutes. So that we can hear from everybody. And I think, if I've got the math right, around 40 people, 5 minutes each, close to 3.5 hours. And we want to hear from you, but we want to make sure that everybody has a chance, and we know that people have other business that they need to attend to today. So to that end, we're going to keep track of the time. And if you see myself or someone else from DEP standing up, that's because we're letting you know that the time has elapsed, and we'd like you to wrap up so that we can move on to the next person. As I mentioned before, we are happy to accept written feedback, and we have the address here. This information will be on our website as well. We ask that you send us that written feedback by close of business tomorrow, and that is because of the quick time frame that we have to make a decision about the petition. And so with that, and the awkward thing is going to be what I've already talked about, the microphone and the passing of that, but we'll help facilitate that so that everyone can be heard when it comes to their turn. And what I will do too is mention the next person and then who's after that, so people have a chance to know and prepare for their turn here to speak. So let me just pause and ask if there are any elected officials who would like to come up and speak first. Yes, sir. Please come.
Prize from Westfield.
Yeah. Stop for a moment. It'll take 5 minutes to put this on.
I'm going to get really good at that.
Hi, my name is Andrew Surprise. I'm a city councilor from Westfield, Massachusetts. So some of the issues that I want to talk about regarding the maximum contaminant level, it's something that's necessary, especially in our case, because we our contamination is determined by MassDEP that it came from our military base, Barnes Regional Air Base, and so we are going through the CERCLA process with the federal government in order for them to. They are required to go by state laws, and in order for them to have that information to get us potentially on, the national books, they need a maximum contaminant level because there hasn't been one determined by the state at this point. I would point out there are a few things that I do have concerns about when you were speaking about setting a treatment standard. Now. Maximum contaminant level in New York State was just set for a combined PFAS, PFOA of 10 parts per trillion. Our concern in Westfield is that, especially by our elected officials, is that the continuing falling of that parts per trillion standard is going to invalidate the treatment that we're using. We're currently using GAC treatment, and we only have one temporary system up on one of our wells. The entire north side of our city is contaminated. The water in our aquifer, and it's the only water source for the north half of our city. I would note that when setting treatment standards, I would suggest, in my opinion, and I know the water director is going to disagree with me, but in my opinion, speaking to other water districts and other elected officials that have dealt with this in other communities, I spoke with the Water Authority Director, Don Sims, in Decatur, Alabama, West Morgan, East Lawrence, Alabama. And they have a GAC system, and they call it a temporary system. They're moving to reverse osmosis. They had a combined PFAS of 110 parts per trillion. They have a 6-chamber GAC. They run 16 million gallons per day, which is significantly larger than Westfield. But they did a 20-year change-out and operation cost study on that GAC system. It would end up costing them $94 million over 20 years. Now, even if that's a quarter of the cost for Westville, we can't afford that. There's just no way. We're a small city, and we're not a wealthy city. And I spoke also with Hoosick Falls Mayor in New York, Rob Allen, and he says that, again, their GAC is a temporary solution. They're seeking an alternative water source from a community which is 15 miles away, and the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation Commissioner Basil Segos quoted recently said, you know, it's long been the objective of the governor and myself that the long-term, the village of Hoosick Falls has an alternate water source that doesn't have PFAS contamination. Now, I think GAC is a temporary solution. GAC costs money. Us putting funding into a source that may need to change doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense to me, excuse my language, because we can't really afford it. We're raising taxes, we're raising water fees to pay for this. So our citizens just want to know, you know, how are we going to address this? How are we going to fund it, first of all, and then the health effects. I mean, if we have the opportunity, which we do in Holyoke, to tap into an alternate water source, many of the citizens that I speak with would prefer that we do that as opposed to trying to treat the contaminated water, which also is under the industrial part of our city. So, thank you.
Are there any other elected officials who would like to speak? I just want to mention, after elected officials, the first person on the list is Cheryl Osimo of the Massachusetts Breast Cancer Coalition.
Good morning. So my name is Matt Emershai. I am a at-large city councilor in Westfield. I work with Councilor Surprise. I want to build upon what Councilor Surprise stated earlier. So Westfield, the north side of the city with the 4 wells that we have, that supplies all of our drinking water. The primary contamination point for us was from the airport, from their burn site for the Air National Guard base. That water is currently flowing right to our 2 wells, 7 and 8, which are building a permanent GAC system at this point. And then it's flowing down in the direction of our other 2 wells. So we have more to come. With the GAC, as levels increase, costs rise, as Councilor Surprise mentioned. But there's also other concerns in the future. Additional discharges. I brought to the attention of Commissioner Suberg and his deputy last month. Back in 2010, the Air National Guard had a discharge that filled the entire alert aircraft hangar with foam. They never alerted DEP about this. Large, very large scale discharge. Also in 2018, they were prepared to coat the runway with AFFF foam because the wrapper, his airplane had landing gear issues, and we have Gulfstream in town. So they wanted to land the Gulfstream jet at our airport. Thankfully, Northeast Air Command stepped in and said, you're not landing that jet here because then the alert aircraft could not be scrambled. That discharge would be in the direct vicinity of our 4 wells and where it would be flowing. So what do we have? We have GAC filtration, we have reverse osmosis, we have alternative water sources. One thing that I was able to come across was Holyoke Water Works has a reservoir in the community to the north of us. They have water lines that run about 1,000 feet south of where our GAC system's being built. So I'd ask, when standards are being set, when we're coming up with processes, I mean, our director's been great in terms of filtering or testing the temporary filtration more frequently than the current DEP requirements, which is important. It gives residents some peace of mind. There's a lot of concerned people in the city. What I would say first is the first alternative should always be alternate water source that does not have these contaminants in it. especially in our situation, one of our cost restrictions with going to Holyoke Water is creating the filter treatment plant for that. Yet Holyoke is not required to filter that water currently. I asked the commissioner last month about possibly waiving that requirement. So I would ask, in some instances, yes, absolutely strengthen the requirements, strengthen the restrictions, but also keep in mind communities like Westfield that need some flexibility, where when we're laying out these plans for, in our case, $16, $17 million worth of filter treatment plants, where if we have a viable alternative to give us that flexibility without saying you need to build a $12 million plant to clean water that is already clean, that's already flowing through another community without a filter. Thank you.
Are there any other elected officials who would like to speak at this time? Please come up. When we complete the elected official portion after Cheryl Osimo, we have Susan Fallon of Green Cape and Stephen Seymour of Green Cape. Just to let folks know. We have one elected official in that community.
Good morning. Mary Ann Zavinsky, Westfield, Mass. I'm a Ward 1 City Councilor, and I guess this is the Westfield City part of the forum. I want to agree with parts of what the previous councilors had to say, but I also want to say that I guess we're here to make comments on the petition that has been given to us by CLF and Tax Extraction Center. And we have had issues in Westfield, as you can see. I am the ward councilor of the ward, one of the wards. There was Ward 6 and Ward 2 that have suffered the most from this contamination, because that is the side of the city, the 4 wells that we have that were contaminated. We have different solutions that have been proposed, and I was happy to read in that petition that GAC filtration with ion exchange is one of the first things that was stated as part of the treatment train that was suggested by CLF and Tax Extraction Center. And then there are other alternatives after that, if you go to follow the treatment train, which is to then do something like reverse osmosis for, and eventually for destruction of those contaminants out of our soil and our water. I was at a conference in UMass in October, 4 days, and I know, and we all know here, some of us know that are sitting here, that there's a lot of attention that is being paid to this over the last several years, and many people out there are trying to find solutions. That's what we need, and I guess we're here to encourage MassDEP, and I hope that we will find solutions to help the communities. If you don't have another option, for example, to go to an alternate water source, if that is the first one, some communities have it, some don't, then what do we offer them? We have to come up with something concrete to give them the possibility of correcting their water solution. And I hope in the end we can come up with something that is not cost prohibitive to the local communities, because this is going to be a tremendous issue for a community like Westfield if you come up with solutions that make it impossible almost, or will strap us financially to try to fix the problem, because residents are looking for solutions. They want to have confidence that their water is safe to drink. And I think that our water department has done a tremendous job working in that direction with a lot of experts, experience and sources that have given us that information. Holyoke was mentioned here, and I'll just throw this out for now because it's not as simple a solution for us as might be indicated. Other experts have told us, some that people in the city of Westfield have counted on over the years that work with BAPEC, which is a Barnes Aquifer Protection Advisory Committee, that was not a good viable solution for us. So here, big solution here is, what are we going to suggest all the agencies like CLF, the Texas Action Center, and the MassDEP, how do we make residents comfortable with the solutions that we will then be able to provide to them, and what are we going to do going forward, because this is a massive problem. Thank you very much. I could go on forever, as some people know, but we need solutions. I'm happy with MassDEP and what they've done. Think about people on private wells, lowering contaminant levels. We're going to create a problem for them. They need a solution. We need a lot of education, information, ongoing, so that those people get their questions and concerns answered. Thank you.